I think we are. Oh, no, wait. I have the wrong mic selected like an amateur. Get out of here.
There we go. That must be better. Okay.
Oh,
So,
now it's much better.
welcome to the show. Oh, much better. Okay, good. So, welcome to the show. Dror, welcome back to the show, actually. Thank you. Thank you for this. We're doing a fun episode today. Well, not fun. It's work. Today, we're getting out our microscopes, everyone. And today, we're studying the entity surgically, at least its media machine. Dror Dayan, he's been on the show before, if you remember. We did an episode a while back, and then another episode with our Jewish Jedi Council. And that was fun. We have to do another one of those. But this episode, it will be mostly Dror talking. We're going to do a tour of the Israeli media machine and we talked about this a little bit before, but the way I'm thinking of this is the way I've been thinking about it lately is that the Hasbara machine that we see here is completely separate from the Hasbara machine, which is to say Israeli media, so-called media. But we know that it is a Hasbara machine because I think it's fair to say this. I don't know if you believe this, Dora, or if you think it's right, but I think like Zionists are probably one of the most propagandized people on the planet. Like just in terms of like pound for pound, the amount of media output aimed at Zionists or aimed at Zionists in context of anti-Zionists. Like there's nothing that I can think that compares on the planet. Just the scale of that machine. And yet there's something interesting is that insofar is that the actual country itself, the media machine of the country itself, very little of it and the content of it trickles out. Now, more of it has done so lately because of the genocidal nature of Israeli media and how they just can't help themselves saying everything. So it's a lot of receipts that Israelis sort of leave behind. But typically, it's for me interesting is that within Zionists themselves, there doesn't seem to be actually much interest in the Hebrew media or like reading Hebrew authors or any of the kind of like actual national projects. If Zionism is a kind of nationalism, as it posits, that a lot of its proponents, the Westoid ones at least, don't have access to the language that circulates and therefore have to rely on English stuff. And then, so all of this is to say that, we know we get a lot of the English side, but the Hebrew side is not really shown to us. So maybe at the outset, Dror, you could give us a general overview of Israeli media, and maybe also in the context too, we'll have to bring up like I'm curious actually how the military censorship works overall, because that means literally every story, every publication has to submit things to the government like beforehand. Is that, I don't know how it actually works like that, or is it just like with military matters? So I'm actually curious about this. So maybe you can start with a bit of an overview and then we'll jump into the actual thing. And for this episode, we're going to do a lot of screen sharing. It'll be a lot of Dror talking over screen. So I would recommend that you go and watch the video edition. Because yeah, it's good to see this stuff. I feel like it's healthy, but yeah, welcome to the show, Dror.
Thanks, Sina. Thanks a lot for having me on again. Yeah, and it's also really, thanks for sort of doing this in this format, because I think it's an interesting experiment, sort of on how we create our own media. And I'm very curious to know if this is something that people would listen to, if that's something that would be useful for people. I listened to your chat with Adnan Hussein last week, and you talked a lot about that. And I think that's a very interesting thing for us to sort of, ask ourselves inside our movement, how do we create media that we can use for our own education and for our own propaganda, basically, and agitation. Yes, maybe one thing that just in the context of what you were saying, that I have a bit of feeling, it's not, it's a bit of a gut feeling, but maybe that's also something that can set us off a little bit. Of course, you're right that sort of, Hebrew is not a very widely spoken language, and we can be very certain that Western Zionists, in most cases, do not speak the language, especially, I think maybe there used to be a time where Zionism went a bit more hand in hand with a certain Israel fetishism in a way, and maybe that's something, there's an sort of a very exaggerated amount of Germans who speak Hebrew, and which they shouldn't be, and that's sort of something that comes from that. But I think that's probably has been less and less the case. And in the context of the media, I think that's also because, on the other hand, something that we all have nowadays is the ability to translate any text immediately. And I think this is something that you see very clearly, for example, when you look at new forms of media like Telegram channels, which we maybe get to a bit later. But what that also leads, the one thing that is still not as easy to translate this way is maybe video and TV. And I think that's where there's a big difference between, I think things that come up on news websites are much more accessible to non-Hebrew speaking audience, but the TV broadcasts that people listen to in the evening in their living room while simultaneously checking their phone, that's really a very internal Israeli thing. And I think that's also maybe quite interesting. Yes, so I mean, we can it would be great if you can sort of prompt me, but let's have a look. Can you see the slides?
But before that, maybe. But hold on. Yeah. Before that, I was thinking, or is this the overview part? Okay, maybe this is the overview part. Okay, yeah, all right. So this is what I was thinking. If we could just name the big institutions that we know. I know Haaretz, Jerusalem Post. What's the other one? Yedua, Ahrano, whatever. Yeah, like Mariv. These ones I know. But then since then, especially with the beginning of the genocide, I've seen a lot of Channel 12, Channel 2. So maybe just kind of guide us through that. Who's the ownership? How does ownership work? Like, yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. So yeah, so let's start with that. So I mean, the first thing, it just really as a very broad overview, that's just a list of sort of the media outlets, the oldest media outlets that still exist. This is not an exhaustive history of all Zionist media, but just the ones that are still around. So just a bit to sort of know where we stand. So Haaretz, as you mentioned, been around for more than a century. Jerusalem Post, which I think together with Haaretz and maybe I-24 News, those are the three prominent English-speaking outlets or English-facing outlets. And Jerusalem Post actually doesn't have a Hebrew. Jerusalem Post was always only an English outlet. And then in the 30s, we had Kol Yerushalayim, the Voice of Jerusalem, a radio, which then became later the Israeli Broadcast Authority, which is something that is a bit like maybe the BBC. Is the most similar to that. It's a national broadcast corporation. Yediot Achronot and Ma'ariv from the 30s and 40s, and then throughout the existence of the entity, probably the biggest daily print newspapers for decades, before sort of new media. 1948, Voice of Jerusalem becomes the Voice of Israel, and becomes the broadcast service of the colonial project as a national entity. Maybe also interesting, 1957, accepted to the European Broadcasting Union, and in response, Egypt and Syria resigned from it. And that's something that, I'm just noting it because today, it's still sort of in the context, even if it's just like sort of anecdotal things like the Eurovision Song Contest or even like football and the such, it does still play a role. The fact that it's been accepted into the European Broadcast Union. In the 90s, so maybe also a bit of 80s are a time of sort of neoliberalization and privatization of a lot of the economy. 1979, I think, was what was called the, I don't know how exactly to translate, but like the big transition in which decades of labor governments lost power to the Likud. And together with that, in the 80s came also a wave of privatization and neoliberal policies sort of also imported from the US, which also affected the media landscape. In 1992 is the introduction of cable television and the introduction of a second channel, Channel 2. Until then, there was only one broadcast TV channel, and then a second channel was introduced. There was there was three companies that were sort of, each had 2 days in the week to broadcast, and then sort of the weekend, and they switched every 3 weeks or something. But that was sort of a private or semi-private alternative to the one channel. In 2015, a bit bigger reforms. The Israeli Broadcast Authority, the original one, changes to a broadcast corporation named Kan, and dropping the TV tax, and working on a government budget. So actually a bit more control, which leads to more government control basically on the public broadcaster. Which again, I wouldn't say that the BBC is different in that, even though British people still pay TV tax, but that's some of the reforms. 2017, Channel 2 is being split into two private owners, Reshet and Keshet. We will get to them soon, and that's what today we also know as Channel 12 and Channel 13. And I would say, there's a lot of stuff, there's also, if you still remember, a couple of years back, there was this whole story with the judicial reform where all the, all the anti-Netanyahu liberals took to the street and then, went completely silent once we had to start murdering Palestinian children. But part of the reforms that were pushed there by the government were also media reforms leading to more control of the government on different on the media. And that's also, I think it really is a footnote, but sort of some of the Netanyahu's corruption trials also have to do with sort of attempts to influence the way that the certain media outlets reported on him, and certain sort of measurements to control the media. So we can talk a little bit about that, but I also wouldn't make a too big a deal of it when analyzing the landscape as a whole. Yes.
I want to pause you for a second. Can you explain military radio in all of this?
Oh, yes. Well, that's an interesting one. But it's basically so the military. I don't know even where exactly to start. The Israeli military has this sort of image, or sort of, again, if we're talking about intern propaganda, this intern ideological propaganda idea of being the people's army. Yeah. And so I would say that part of it is also the fact, is also that it runs a radio station, or two radio channels, one of sort of news and actualities, one mostly of music, and the people who work on those stations are soldiers. Yeah, so you can sort of be drafted to work in that, and then you can stay, or it's officers and whatever, people who like professional people who have made a career in the military, but as working on the radio. And actually, maybe what's interesting about it is that there are now very strong attempts of the government to actually close down those stations because they are considered too liberal, because they are considered that sort of a little bit. And maybe that's something that is important to talk about a little bit in terms of. I was having when I was preparing this, I talked a little bit to sort of family and this about how to approach it and ideas, and we had a bit of a discussion of sort of where if there are lines of demarcation in the Israeli society and where they are, because they clearly are not on the topic of Zionism. At least I would not say, in my opinion, any anti-Zionism is too negligible to address in terms of a society, of looking at the society. So I don't think that it's useful to draw a line between Zionists and non-Zionists or anti-Zionists in the Jewish Israeli society. But one sort of line that does still probably play a role is maybe religion, and religion also in the cultural aspect, and maybe we can also say Ashkenazim and Mizrahim together with that. And I think that the military radio stations are just, they have this image of being, more of the Ashkenazi secular liberal sort of strand. And that is just something that puts them in the crosshairs of the Netanyahu government, as absurd as it might sound, that those are actually the IOF own radio channels. So I think that's that. I wouldn't ascribe much more importance to them in that sense, but it is, they are, maybe just in the curiosity of really having two radio channels, that operate daily who are basically military run. Yeah.
But then the censorship machine inside of this too. What's this story? Like, how does it actually operate?
Yeah. So it's a bit. I to be very fair, I tried to find some more concrete details on sort of the technicalities of that. I couldn't get into the weeds as much as I hoped to. Basically, it's complicated because we have to also look at, there's just so much of it is just sort of self-censorship. And I can give a couple of examples. There were a couple of things I wanted to talk about a bit later, but we can talk about them now. But maybe a couple of things to say about it. So sort of in the early years of the project, there was something called the editorial commission or editorial committee, which was basically the editors of all the daily newspapers and media outlets, and they would meet regularly with the military censor, with military officials, and sort of discuss the line and what should be published and not and those things. Besides that, it's just things that are pertaining to national security. They need to be approved by the censor, and sort of that also led to something that was used to be very common, that then oftentimes you're not allowed to report on things. You are allowed to quote foreign media. So there are many. So that was something that was always very common in Israeli media, to sort of say, according to foreign sources, our military did this or this. So so you have to sort of wash it a bit, sort of launder it through foreign sources. But basically, I think
they make foreign media also go through those censors too. I'm pretty sure CNN. I remember seeing that CNN submits its articles and its reports to that censor. So it's an interesting that they can flex this kind of media control. And I think in some ways is that the straight Hebrew is a small language. It's a small media sphere. And Israel is a small country based in not that many cities. You can try, and even the fact that the language itself isn't that spoken by that many people means that you can then monitor it more effectively and be more of a presence. And so I don't think people understand the degree to which this is not that Hasbara is not just for us. It's for everyone. Israeli information is Hasbara. It's controlled. There's a handful of Israelis who even talk openly. And you're one of them. You're literally one of them. You haven't lived there in 10 years. So even inside
20.
the country, there's a crazy... Yeah, that's the thing. Even inside the country, there's a crazy amount of censorship. All those stories of a teacher who expressed, sympathy for the children of Gaza getting lynched by their students the next day. This is not media is one of the keys to this level of indoctrination. It has to be.
Oh, okay. I mean, well, so let's. But I mean, I would say this is maybe a bit different. I would separate. How should I call it? Because those cases are very, very common. Yeah. And I don't know if that's, I would not call it censorship in the media sense. Yeah. There is, there's just a sort of, there's a sort of a mob rule that you just can't say things too much. And that's something that's very, it became very, very common in schools. But it was, I think, even before that in universities, you have, you have an organization like Im Tirtzu, which is sort of a fascist NGO, whatever you would call it, that have a lot of sort of students that spy on their lecturers, and if they utter a wrong word in a lecture or something, then there's and it's not, and but those are so many. Yeah,
wait, they have their own canary watch for Israelis?
Of course. Yeah, 100%.
I love it.
And I
didn't know that. Of course.
But it's not even, you don't need a canary watch in the sense that you don't need a website to shame people. We all know, I assume everyone knows the case of Professor Nadira Shalom Kevorkian. And that wasn't from a lecture. That was something that she said on Makdisi Street. But I mean, she was kidnapped from her home. She was tortured. She was deprived of medicine that she needs. I think just for saying that Zionism is, I mean, I don't remember the exact formulation, but it was something very.
I made the clip. I made a clip that circulated on the entity's media. I was so like, I saw the clip that I made on my laptop is now circulating in Israel. And I was like, what the fuck? And she said it like what she said exactly too. Then if it did happen, not in my name. She explicitly went out to say that if these rapes happen, not in my name, I condone them. And that wasn't enough for the Zionists. They just wanted an excuse to like get their pitchforks.
So what I'm saying is that those things are very, very common, but I don't know if I would put them together with media censorship. Yeah, because that's just about sort of scaring straight people who deviate from the norm. That's not so much about the dissemination of information through media. But I mean, I can give you two examples from the 12-Day War, from True Promise. Yeah. So one example was there was a clip, so like how you call it, like a selfie video that came out that I think didn't really get the exposure that it should have. Of I think her name is Sophie von den Tann. She was a German reporter, I believe, for ZDF, and she was in the Tel Aviv bureau of German TV during the 12-Day War, and she recorded like this selfie video at some point saying sort of that she has to get it off her chest that there are so many strikes and hits on military facilities that she is not allowed to report on. And I think she literally said, like, we know where the missiles hit, but we are only allowed to report on the ones that fall on residential areas. So, and I mean, how exactly, I mean, what exactly does it mean when a German journalist says we're not allowed? I don't know. I assume first and foremost, it's a question of access. I think it's just, they're just being told if you do something wrong, then you will never get, they all get their press cards from the government, from the GPO, the government press office. Yeah. So it's very easy to revoke your press credentials and then you're done. Yeah. And even if we, put aside what it means for a German journalist to lose their press credentials, then you're also done in Germany if that happened to you in Tel Aviv. But but I think there's a lot of issues of access. You want the interviews, you want the press credentials. And then also, so there's now, they passed this Al Jazeera rules, so the law, so it's sort of, there are also legal implications for that. And the war, for journalists from Arab countries, for example, who are not working for Al Jazeera, but sort of because of that, because basically every Israeli law is sort of says an Arab is an Arab. So they can be threatened under this law, even if they report for Reuters or whatever, just because if you're Arab, you're Al Jazeera. So there are those different means. But I mean, maybe I'll give you maybe there's another example that's a bit more even clarifying. And I wanted to get a bit later more into the issue of Telegram, but while we're on the subject, so we can talk about it later. Telegram has seen a very big rise as a form of alternative media, and when the 12-Day War started, that was very illuminating because I was sort of stuck. I was scrolling through the Zionist Telegram channels every night, religiously, because that was the fastest, best, and at many times the most accurate source to see the hits, to see how successful the strikes were, and to see what really happened. I mean, what was really intercepted and what really hit its targets and which targets. And so for the first maybe 3 days.
And it was Israelis themselves who were recording videos for clout to share among their friends, posting it on Telegram instantly, which you can't block. And then all of them sounding like Mario Kart characters as missiles raining over their head. Like, it's a perfect metaphor of like, oh, this is our imperial supremacy. oh wait, it was a chimera. Like, oh oops, like we fucked around and found out, as they like to say.
So for the first several nights, you could really, just by going through those, just scrolling through those channels, going to Google Maps, doing a little bit of like, OSINT games, you can get a really good picture of what's happening and what was hit and what wasn't. And then on day 3 or 4 or something around those lines, on all of those channels, you would start seeing message, hey guys, we've been told that we're risking national security in what we're doing. So, from now on, we will not show those videos. Please don't send it to us, and please don't share in your own networks, and don't say where it hit, because you're helping the enemy and you're helping and then it was done, and after 3 days, like you would only, you could really see how the videos that come are curated, are sent, only the things that really were already published by mainstream media, that already passed through military censorship, or that you can't use them for any kind of information. Only those appeared. Yeah, and that came together with what I said about the German. So like after like half of the 12 days, you could see how very effectively everything was throttled. Yeah, and sort of after that, you could. It was very hard to figure anything out that wasn't, that the military basically didn't want you to figure out. So that's, I'm just giving those examples as say there's not, the censorship is always, it has many prongs, and there's a lot of self-censorship, and there's a lot of just quid pro quo, and there are sanctions such as, you want to keep your credentials, you want to keep your access, you want to not get deported if you're if you're from the wrong skin color. So I think that's sort of what to be said. I think there's not much more to it in terms of military censorship, actually.
Right. Okay, so we'll let you get back to the presentation. Enough of this derailing business.
All right. Okay, so that's basically
next slide.
Yeah, that's the history. Okay. Next slide. Oh, that's a bit, yeah, PowerPoint didn't upload so well, but okay, that's fine. No, we're all lo-fi here. So I just to say, most of I looked a little bit for some more sort of concrete and empiric data. I found a survey from April 24 by the aptly named Israel Institution for Democracy, and so there were a couple quite useful things. So I hope people can see sort of, they ask, and this is a survey that was done from the Jewish population. Yeah, so it says % of all Jews, and that's, just again, probably important to just to remember, 20% of Israeli citizens are Palestinian, and presumably their media habits are quite different. So this only pertains to Israeli Jews, and so just a bit for us to understand what are the main sources that Zionists get their media from. So as you can see, the main one are news channels, news websites on the internet. Yeah, so they get it online, but from news websites, and we can see how that slices up in a bit. Just a bit for clarification, that sort of the dark blue is the primary source and light blue is secondary source. So we can see that both primarily and both in total, news websites are number 1, television is number 2, and I actually can't see what it says now, but I think the third is needs to be, what is the third? Can you see? I can't see that now.
Social networks.
Yes, exactly. Social networks. Yeah, exactly. Social networks, and then number 4 are separate from social. So social networks, they mean TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then number 4 is WhatsApp and Telegram. So what I would call messaging apps. Yeah, and then radio, number 5, and you can see that print is basically like everywhere. Basically dead. Okay, and then just a little bit, because like we said before, what are the lines of demarcation? Are there lines of demarcation? And like I said, I wouldn't divide anything into Zionist and anti-Zionist, because I don't think that anti-Zionism is something that, I think it's negligible statistically. This survey did sort of ask and divide based on, do you see yourself as left, center, or right? Yeah, and I mean, just to be very clear, when we say left, it's more or less what in English we call liberal Zionists, even though I think this is also a term that, it's a bit, because I think liberal Zionism oftentimes is a translation of the Hebrew term Zionist left, and Zionist left isn't, it's an oxymoron, but also then when it gets translated into liberal
Zionists left? They left? Where did they go?
But I mean, that would be sort of, Labor and sort of the Social Democrats and as such, yeah. Center would be.
So they basically follow the global trends, right? TV is still a source of news. It would be interesting though, but yeah, it's now the internet, and this is how it goes. This is the story ever. I mean, this is a Westoid thing too, because I still think that there's still places in the world where newspapers are there's still some kind of culture of it, but or print newspapers, which is to say, but this is. This looks like the rest of the planet, but it's interesting too, that the nature. These are American social media networks, right? Like their own, their media networks aren't really their own, but then they send their Zionists. But then they are their own in a sense, because they send their proxies to buy them and then institute, friendly environments for them, as we saw on TikTok. They're now doing it to CBS. Like this, I don't know. It's an interesting, with this much narrative control, you'd think like, wait, you need more? Like, is that you need more? Is this just like a flex you're doing on us to show that
even though that again, like you said, I mean, you like you said at the beginning, which is very correct. We have to also think about the language. Yeah, because when this here says social networks, it's those American social networks, but in Hebrew, and I mean, it's not necessarily a big difference, but in terms of moderation, all those platforms they moderate based on language, they censor based on language. So and I mean, that's, by the way, it's also not a new thing that the military has like very intricate sort of big data collecting software for monitoring social media, and that also didn't start like in the recent years, and they've been arresting people based on sort of big data queries on social media. If you remember, there's the famous case of Darin Tatur, the poet, but like there's so many cases of people who just wrote something on Facebook or on whatever, and then the Shin Bet was at their door.
They get arrested for likes. You get arrested for liking posts in the entity, like it's
and that's not our topic, but this is all also big data analysis, AI power. So that's also a technological, and that's basically also cyber warfare in a sense, even if it's cyber counterinsurgency, if you like.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, so I just back to this graph, just a bit to show that there really isn't much of a difference between people who consider themselves on different sides of the Zionist spectrum. I mean, the only thing that's a little bit interesting is that actually center and left TV is number one, even though that we just saw that in the overall news sites are number one. So that actually shows you the amount of people who define themselves as right against those who define themselves as center, as left. It's enough to tip the scale and make websites number one. But I mean, just to show that it really barely changes regardless of how people think that they are. Right. Okay. So let's move to let's start with TV channels, and maybe now we can also start having a look because those TV channels also have websites, and that's also, by the way, where the separation becomes slightly artificial, no? Because when people say I go to check the news on the internet, they go to the channel 12. They often go to the channel 12 website, and they would see the same content that they see on their TV screen at home at night. So it's more about sort of the medium that you consume it for, much less about the content. But in terms of the TV channels, channel 12, which is one of the split that I talked about from channel 2. So channel 2 split basically today into Keshet and Reshet, and Keshet have channel number 12 on their TV remote, and Reshet has channel 13. So 12 number 1, 13 number 2. Third place is, and again, this is where it sort of changes a little bit. I mean, where it might be interesting to look at this primary and secondary resource. If you look at it in total, channel 11 is number 3. Channel 11 is the Broadcast Corporation. So that's sort of like the national, that would be the BBC in a way. But if you look at the amount of people that, at the primary source that people are looking at, then channel 14 is second place. And channel 14, we can talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but channel 14 is sort of, you know, for lack of a better term, maybe it's the Fox News or the sort of like that's the sort of the much more aligned with the settler movement, with religious Zionism. Yeah.
I have a question though, because then this is interesting. Oh wait, I just lost it. Fuck, I just had it. It was really good. Damn it. It will come back. Keep going.
Okay. So yeah, so we can see that actually channel 14, which is a fairly small channel, but among it has its own audience and it's very strong with its own audience. All right, so let's have a look a bit at ownership and try to delve a little bit in the political economy. Channel 12 is Keshet. They also run, I mean, it's also called Mako. Sort of Mako is the overall outlet channel, and channel 12 is more the news facing one, but they have separate websites, but it belongs to the same ownership.
Wait, pause. I had a question.
Yes.
Now my question came back. So are these channels over the air, or which one is, or are they cable? So all TV is free in Israel?
Well, those I think those are all part of, those should all,
So there is a cable, there are cable, you can,
yes,
cable
there are
TV
extra channels and foreign channels and entertainment channels, but I'm 99% certain that at least those 4, I mean, channel 11 for certain, no, all four must be, I'm sure they're accessible to everyone.
Because then there's a class thing too, because the poorer people who are just watching on an antenna or whatever on the free, that's, and then. But
I don't think that applies to the news channels. I'm fairly certain that it can't apply. No.
That was my question.
Yeah, no, that's a good, and I'm sorry that I can only give you a 99% answer, but I am fairly certain, and I can have a look. Okay, so just a little bit who owns what. So channel 12, which is probably the biggest one, is majority share is the Wertheim family, who also own Coca-Cola Israel. Channel 13, which is Reshet, is the majority share of 52% is by Len Blavatnik, who also owns, I mean, I just found it interesting. It's actually not the same thing, but he owns a majority share of the Warner Music Group. And then another 21% of the channel are by the Discovery Channel, which belongs to Warner Media. But Warner Media and Warner Music are not the same anymore. They used to be. Now they're not. And then 8% belong to Ehud Angel, who owns Zim Shipping and Bazan Refineries. And I just thought that's interesting geopolitically. First of all, Bazan Refineries. I brought a picture of Bazan Refineries, if anyone, for people to remember what it is that they do. And so and Zim, of course, is a huge shipping container company. Yeah, the chips all over the world. So that's also, I mean, 8%, but that's also part of the share. And now we have channel 14, which is, again, a bit smaller in scope.
Interesting. The origins of these people. Len Blavatnik's Russian, I think, or Ukrainian, I think.
So Blavatnik, I actually, exactly. I just brought his Wikipedia because I found it so.
$26 billion. Net worth. I mean,
Yeah, and of course, for good.
Yet another calamity connected to the end of the Soviet Union, right here.
Exactly.
For good measure,
made his money off the collapse of the Soviet Union, and received a knighthood for his services to philanthropy. So, I mean, it's always the same. I think
he was kicked out of the country, right? And I think he was eventually kicked out of the country, maybe not. I think he was one of those, maybe not. I don't remember.
I
There's
think
so many.
it might be. And that's also, to be honest, even just going through Israeli media, I start getting my oligarchs mixed up because there's like different ones. Because Channel 14 is also like a sort of a post-Soviet family, yeah, Mirilashvili. And they I think made a lot of their money through gas drilling. They're very, very big donors to Friends of the IDF, which people in North America would know. I think Robert De Niro is also a big donor, and also very big donors for Zaka. Yeah, and Zaka is a name that also.
Oh my God, them too. Oh man.
So Zaka is short for Identification of Victims of Catastrophes, and that's sort of this volunteer organization that how do you call it, sort of retrieves body parts or after attacks and after events. And they of course came to much prominence with all the very imaginative stories that they told global media after the 7th of October. Yeah, so I think Zaka played a big role in the atrocity propaganda that sort of manufactured consent for the genocide, and so just interesting to see who the owners donate to. And then just another tidbit is sort of Channel 14 is also number 1 on South Africa's ICC charges for incitement to genocide. So the lawsuit has lists cases of incitement, and media-wise, Channel 14 is number 1 in terms of the quotes that were broadcasted, sort of manufacturing the genocide. And then we have Channel 11, which is the broadcast corporation. So it's basically still the public. It's government funded. All right. Does the class have any questions on TV before we move on to websites?
So
I'm sorry, I'm also in the middle of semester, so it's my instinct.
So Khan is the national broadcaster. That's an acronym.
Yeah.
That's an acronym for something.
I mean, Khan just means here in Hebrew.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's it's a good question. I can.
It's because I've seen these names all my life. Like I've seen these things, and I've never systematically gone through them or cared enough. I just know that like the old adage that translating a Hebrew tweet is like finding a secret page of Mein Kampf.
Exactly.
That's the only thing. That's the depth of my knowledge of Israeli media. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking at the Wikipedia thing. I also can't find. I assume it just means here. So maybe there is no acronym there. But yeah, that's
Damn, that right wing, they like their alternative news, eh? God knows where they're going. Are they going to Eretz Sheva or whatever, that crazy people? Eretz Sheva, I remember from college. I remember meeting this insane
Yeah, you can see it. It's the yellow one. Eretz Sheva is the yellow one.
Oh, that's that one. Oh, is that? Oh, I see. Okay, that's 7. Oh, that's what. Okay,
yeah.
Shabbat. Okay, I see. Okay, because
exactly.
I remember going to an Arutz Sheva website and I was like, what the fuck? Like in like college or something. I was like, are these people for real? Because some guy like recommended me that I go to that. I was like, okay, and then I went. I was like, no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, and Arutz Sheva channel. I mean, Arutz Sheva Channel 7, whatever you want to call it. It's been around for a while. Yeah, as a radio thing, and then it's now it's also online. I think online it's INN, no INNCOIL. I think is the website or something. And that's it was always sort of the main, or I don't know if one of the main outlets of the settler movement. And that's where also now Channel 14 is sort of a bit, I mean, to be honest, I don't know if to say if it's encroaching on its, I don't know exactly how it works there in terms of hegemony and if they're battling it out or not. But now Channel 14 is sort of maybe the more hegemonic and also TV based form of that. Yeah, but so those are the news. And again, we said news websites are basically the main source, and that's how they slice again based on whether people define themselves as left, center, or right.
Ynet is that popular?
Yeah, I was also surprised, but it is. Apparently it is. And Ynet, again, just to make it clear, Ynet is Yediot Achronot. So that's sort of the online portal of what used to, of the daily print Yediot
Oh, damn. I
Ahronoth.
realize we should be describing these numbers to people who are listening. So
You're right.
Ynet is across the board at least 30% on the right, and then 40 and 42% for the left and center. So it's quite it's a dominant force. And then
Yes, yes.
is N12 channel 12?
Yes, N12 is channel. So again, that's that's channel
The
12.
website
That's
of the
Keshet.
channel, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. So that means there's enough, in reality, what that means is there's enough brand loyalty of the consumers of those two networks to sort of translate into kind of loyalty. Because typically that's what happens. People kind of pick their outlets and then sort of return to them every day because it's just what you do. So it's interesting, that it's like two media sources. I mean, on the left, the left is such a tell because it's two sources. It's just Ynet and Channel 12.
Yeah, and I mean, and you see that. I mean, on the left you have a bit of Haaretz.
Haaretz.
That's the
Oh my God,
the light
Haaretz,
blue
what a
one on
joke.
top. Yeah, exactly. Which doesn't exist in any of the other camps. And I mean, that's also interesting, isn't it? Because I guess a lot of sort of people in the West who follow that, if you would tell them Haaretz is 8% of the people who think they are leftists, they would not believe you. Because sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because that's why I remember people be like, wow, did you read Gideon Levy's new op-ed in Haaretz? Oh my God, the Zionism is done. It's done. It's like, come on, man. This isn't fucking Walter Cronkite, announcing the end of the Vietnam War. Come on. I mean, this is so, interesting. Wow.
And
I knew
so you
Haaretz
can see
was
how
not
many.
that popular. But I didn't know it was that not popular. Jeez, 8% of a tiny slice of the country.
Exactly. So when Gideon Levy writes an op-ed, 8% of the people who consider themselves left Zionists read it. That's the reach that it has.
Wow. God, that just means their web game is way good because they can represent themselves as because probably more foreigners read it than actual Zionist settlers. Probably because in terms of the media class,
I think it's probably more about their English facing presence than the because I to be honest I don't think that their online game is very strong. From what I follow.
That's true. But it's just I remember Aluf. I remember reading in college and stuff Aluf Ben whatever his name was. I think he was a Haaretz guy. Ben. And you would I would learn their names. I'm pretty sure Amira Haas was writing. I think Amira Haas was a big name. Yeah,
yes.
So I remember these names, but I had heard people tell me, Palestinians, they're Haaretz is a joke, right? It's not what you think, but it's not surprising then that that's what I found because that's it's for Westoids. Actually, and this relates to the larger problem that Zionists have to confront, which is culturally speaking, their movement is split between vastly different demographics. You have Westoid Zios, and then you have actual settlers. So the Westoid Zios do all kinds of work to help Zionism run, but they actually don't have any kind of cultural interface with the country, right? Beyond symbolic shit, beyond like we were saying before, the Blake Feltons or Failtons, Failson, whatever his name is, the guy who migrated there or whatever, he went and lived there to spite people. I would be highly surprised if he's mastered Hebrew or if at least converses in Hebrew because I don't know. Westoids don't learn languages, period, let alone hard ones like Hebrew that are hard to learn and you have to train yourselves. Let alone, let's remember the fact that a lot of Israelis don't even fucking speak Hebrew as their mother language. Come on. So you expect people in their 30s to arrive there and learn a new language? It doesn't work. It doesn't. So it's interesting then that this will never, if Zionism continues, whatever, in perpetuity in the future, this will never get resolved. This problem of the bifurcation culturally. Sorry.
And do you not think? And do you not think? Oh, sorry. Now I want to ask you something when your air compressor's on. But do you not think? I mean, maybe from sort of the North American view, that this is also a big reason why we see that split among sort of, that a lot of Zion. There's just a bigger and bigger difference between what Zionists imagine to be the Zionist project and what it really turns out to be. No, because I think that's also, and that's why I think, I'm sure that there are a lot of North American Zionists who truly believe that all Zionists wake up in the morning in the colony and have Arabic coffee and drink and read Haaretz. and that is sort of their culture
and they're
and
missing
their
out.
values.
Like they're missing out on their true identity. They're missing out on something. They're missing out on being. I mean, even the idea of calling Jews who live outside of the entity diaspora is such a joke. It's like, diaspora what? Naftali Bennett, his parents were from California. He was born in California. Like, this is not like a diaspora. You are American, bro. You are American. You are an American
that's
in
also,
Palestine.
That's also sort of, I think that's okay. That's a very different topic. We can do that on the Jedi Council once when you, but like that's also a bit of a bastardization of, because the idea of diaspora is a Jewish idea. It's not a Zionist idea. But the big difference is that in Judaism, you were supposed to be diaspora. That wasn't a problem. It's not a problem that you're diaspora. That's the whole idea. Sort of, you're praying for Jerusalem, but you're not going to colonize it. And sort of, that's what sort of the nationalization of Judaism led to that. But yeah, I mean, that we're maybe getting a bit off track here. But yeah, I mean, just to say that I think that does show sort of, I can imagine that the mainstream view of Zionists in the US or in North America of the colony is very, very far from what you would see if you open those websites and look at those TV shows and see and see the culture as it is, and especially as it is in the last decades. And that might be a segue to maybe we want to look a little bit at the websites. No, that was also something we wanted.
You have more slides. You have more slides, though, don't you?
I have more. Yeah, we can go. Yeah, so we can go through the slides, and then I really
for the project.
No, it's just I'm really in my lecture. No, I sort of think, okay, we'll walk through the slides, then you can all go out and have a smoke, and then come back and we'll do that. But. All right, yeah, let's finish with that. So, I mean, just very briefly. So, the ownership in terms of websites, Ynet, like I said, is the Yediot Achronot group. That's the Moses family. That was one of the cases, the corruption cases of Netanyahu. It's really not important enough to get into that, but that was what was called Case 2000. There's another website that I think had like around 10% in the chart we just saw, which is called Walla. I mean, we can also talk about, that's also a very Israeli thing. And that was, I mean, maybe just interesting it was owned by Bezeq until 2020. Bezeq is the telecommunication company. Bezeq is the telecom. Yeah, they run the phone infrastructure. So they had that website. Now Jerusalem Post Group bought it. Channel 12, I mean N12, which again, TV channel and website. So again, it's Keshet. And Haaretz is owned by the Shoken family, which is again, just a private capital family. Okay, let's have a bit of a look at social media. That's sort of interesting, isn't it? Or is that?
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, so people who are listening to this, 86% of the left are the primary or secondary news of some. I guess it's not clear. This is primary or it's primary.
No. Yeah, it's primary.
Secondary?
It's primary. It's aggregated. It's primary and secondary, I guess.
Yeah, so Facebook for the left is 86%. It's 73% for the center and 68%. So it tells you Facebook is extremely popular in the entity, at least among Jews.
And it's also
it is popular too among other people in the region. Still, people still on it. I'm like, what?
That's also true. That's also true. And I mean, it's also Instagram. I think in the West it's a very generational thing, but maybe not everywhere. Maybe, yeah. But I mean, by the way, something that I did find interesting is also that you do see a major difference here based on how people define themselves politically. I mean, it's almost 20% difference between right and left use of Facebook. So I think that also just shows sort of Facebook is a bit like this, it's where the Israeli left, and I'm doing air quote for those listening on audio, where the Israeli left goes to die. Yeah.
Well, it's just the small intent, like all these socials though have turned into like mostly just bots and small, intensely connected and like communicative niche communities that of extremely addicted users, basically, which is basically me on Twitter. Like, there's nobody on Twitter. I know this for a fact. I've been on Twitter many years, too many years, and you can tell just the actual human beings you used to interact with, they're gone. Most of them, at least. It's just the diehard users and bots. And now it's even worse because the bots were a lot clunkier. Like they couldn't be programmed in the same way. Now you have AI bots who are like, wow, that post you brought up was very interesting. If this really happens, there are going to be consequences. And it's like the most banal fucking, DJ 3000 pre-recorded track response you've ever read. And like the AI has made this worse. So it's interesting that like it's still, and of course Twitter is at the bottom of Israeli socials use, which is true, which is like actually the case.
Even though I was a bit surprised.
I would have thought YouTube would be more. YouTube would be a lot higher, you would think, because across the board it's only 20%, 22%, 26%. It probably just means that Israeli. So this is all Hebrew. So that just means like there's not a huge number of creators doing content in Hebrew.
I mean, presumably that it's not necessarily all Hebrew, because I can imagine that a lot of people are following
Russian.
international. No, also just American influencers for sure.
Right.
I mean, especially on something like Instagram. Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, again, I don't know exactly how that stacks up to other countries. I think that there are, for me, looking at it sort of as Israeli society, that makes a lot of sense, both in the sense of, Facebook is sort of the refuge of the dead. Instagram, I don't know if that's considered high or not, but for me, it makes a lot of sense for a society that is very sort of superficial and sort of
yes, I can confirm this as an Iranian. Iranians are crazy for Instagram, the most superficial people on the planet. That's
also
what
because
Instagram has done to our generation. Oh brother, oh man.
Because I know from Iranian comrades that sort of people tell me, when I go to Instagram, after an hour in Instagram, I'm sure that Pahlavi is already ruling the country, and then I go to Twitter and I see that the US has lost control of the Middle East. So, but I think that does make sense for Israeli society. I would expect a bit more Twitter, but again, you're right. Twitter is just a cesspool, and probably is just that it just affects everywhere. And TikTok is maybe also, again, TikTok here, it's definitely, it belongs to the right, and I think there was also, it's twice as many sort of people who define themselves as right and as left, and I think that's something that. I know, for example,
in the Israeli population,
yes.
Twice there's two rightoids for every so-called leftist.
Well, yes. So from people who define as right, 18% said they use TikTok, and 9% from people who define themselves as left.
I thought you meant in terms of the population, like in terms of
no. It does. There's much more right wing than left, so it's much more than 2 to 1 in terms of absolute numbers. Yeah. But I think there is a little like people like Itamar Ben Gvir managed to capitalize quite well on TikTok. Yeah, so I think he has a very sort of active TikTok account, for example. So that's something that
I remember seeing a video of him. He had Meyer Kahane on his, or Baruch Goldstein somewhere. Like
both of them are the posters. Yeah.
Yeah, the poster of him on his thing, and they were like, oh yeah, and it was like a way to signal, like, yeah, I'm an ultra fash. That's my thing.
Yeah, but also, just this comment.
I need to take a shower TikTok. After this episode, bro.
Like those TikTok kind of things. Yeah, like sort of, I'm walking now in the streets of the old city in Jerusalem to show who's the boss and to show all those Arabs here who's the boss, and like doing a selfie video while doing it. And that mobilizes, mobilizing brown shirts with selfie videos is a big thing today. It's a major part of sort of, and not just there, not just in the colony, in many places. And not to say that, I'm not sort of singling out TikTok, but just in general social media, because, TikTok can just as well have a very critical, very positively critical elements. Okay, but that's sort of how it splices in terms of social media. And then what I talked a little bit about before, and just to show it a little bit in numbers, because I think that's very interesting. So that's from another survey. Does it? Let me just see.
The Telegram, baby. Telegram is still the king, even though it's been kind of ruined.
So that's the thing. It's not. So this survey is from October 24, and I think. And so just to say what we see here, also for people not on video, the question is, in the event of breaking news, what is the first source people turn to. Yes, so not just sort of, going to see what's up to date, but if something specific happened, where do you go to get the most up-to-date, most breaking news information? And Telegram channels are a quarter of the answers, and they're basically the same as news, as legacy media. Yeah. And this is a result of October 7th. This happened after October 2023. So this is something fairly new, and I think probably, I mean, it's interesting also, probably to see it in the context both of, the genocide since October 23 as being sort of a live stream genocide, and it's also maybe interesting, again, it's a bit beyond the scope, but to examine this in the sense of, their tendency to document their own war crimes and upload it to social media. Yeah, so there's just this sort of, I don't know even how exactly to call it, but
this is the thing. This act though of like recording your crimes and then sharing them. This is the basis of Zionist community formation today. The primary thing, like that's all they have. They don't have a functioning society. They just have exterminate the brutes, like written in Hebrew on their brains every day. Like, look at me, I've exterminated so many brutes. Like, clap for me. Like, this is I guess, I mean, people listening to this will obviously agree with this, but like the normies who are not paying attention to this, like this fascism, I don't know, Zionist fascism is something new. I feel like there's nothing, maybe because it's so small, it's like so intensely, like because other fascisms in the history of the world have not unfolded. I mean, it's all different, but I don't know, it's just the crazy stuff you hear in Israeli media, the shamelessness, and then that's the stuff that filters to the top of broadcasting, the stuff that's like lower down, like the things that the screenshots you get of Telegram channels. I mean, this fascism is an advanced disease, and like no country has it worse than the fucking entity, than like Jews, and like Jews, specifically Jewish Zionists, who are proud of these crimes. So that sharing them and showing how your impunity, I mean, it's just, this will haunt us, man. I know it's like off topic and stuff, but like all this shit will haunt us, these crimes. Like, you just think of like all the video, like all the sort of libs who made careers republishing images from, like Nazi violence in Eastern Europe or something, and be like, oh my God, never again. Like the never againers meant never again to us, like never again to us, but we can do it to them, and we can record ourselves and congratulate ourselves. And I don't know. Anyways, there's no going back after this. Anyways, that's neither here nor there, but we should keep going because it's already been over an hour and I'm just yambling. But wow, television channels and Telegram. That Telegram has caught up to TV is saying something, because that's not the case here. People don't know about Telegram here. Only like people who are like from the region. It's more of a regional thing. And the people have been on Telegram in the region for like decade now, even if after they fucking caught Pavel Durov in France and God knows what they did to him and probably took the keys away from the app. But okay, we should probably get to the next slide.
Yes. So I mean, and again, just to shortly say something that happened after October 2023, there was, also just this proliferation of Telegram, basically snuff Telegram groups. So there was like a Telegram group. I just pulled up the screenshots from somewhere with 100,000 members is not small for an Israeli Telegram channel. And it was a channel called Terrorists from a Different Perspective. And it was all just videos of dead people with like smileys and jokes and this, you remember the Rachel Corrie pancake party. So like along those lines. Okay. So that's Telegram. That's just a bit to see the number of, but we can skip that, just the number of users on Telegram channels, and based on it, because it wasn't quite clear it's not the same as the breaking news one, right. But either way, the bottom line is that Telegram, since 2.5 years, as Telegram and WhatsApp have seen quite a rise. We can see that the way that people are using it. So we can see that on WhatsApp, the vast majority use family groups and sort of it's group chats, and so I think that, again, just to separate that from Telegram channel, that's a huge form of media and communication, what people share around in their group chats, in their family group chats, in their workplace group chat, and so on. And so you can see that
where they feel safe
WhatsApp,
saying things that wouldn't be acceptable outside. Yeah.
But I think there's also, I mean, because when you go to a Telegram channel, you consume things, but when you share it, you're doing something active, and you're basically sort of, you're propagandizing other people. You're calling other people to sort of take your position. You maybe you want to, you make that one sort of quote unquote leftist colleague uncomfortable on purpose in the work group chat. So there's a much more active and societal element to it, to a WhatsApp group chat than to a Telegram channel. So that's just what I wanted to sort of show with that. Yeah, and then just a couple of maybe another small anecdote. So again, the survey from the Israeli Democracy Institute asked what should be the function of the media. 44% said it should be accurate information and commentary. 20% said it should be to pose questions about the way the war is managed. Yeah, so I just want to make it clear that the formulation in Hebrew is very specific. It's not to question the war, it's to question how the war is being waged, which can mean and probably does mean sort of we're not killing enough. Yeah,
it could also cut the other way too. They can, like, libs can use this to take refuge and be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, because this, like, as we learned in this part of the world when I lived in the US, like, people get behind wars in fascist countries. Like, they get behind, mostly they don't like challenge wars. So like that could be also questioning the management of the war and the government policy, because that's also the thing that libzios do, is that, oh, it's not our people, it's not Zionism, it's our Netanyahu government, it's their government, oh, the government's so bad. But yeah, I wonder. But in the case of Israelis, though, you're probably right. It's probably
So I actually want to qualify. I mean, let's be clear. There is, because we saw, for example, one important topic that is, that did split the society is the prisoners, is the people that were taken prisoner on the 7th of October, and sort of this question of whether. Should they be negotiated for release? Should there be a prisoner swap? Should there be, or should we just kill everyone until the only one that's left, and whatever? So I think that is what it mostly pertains to, and that was a contested point between pro and anti-government. I mean, government in the sense of the specific Likud Netanyahu government, and so on. So that did exist. How do we get back our poor hostages? Was definitely a question that not everyone saw eye to eye on. Yeah, and then number 14, the role of media is to strengthen national solidarity and morale. Yeah, so that's, as in any good society. Yeah. And again, and that's just to go back to what I said before about the Telegram groups in the 12-day war. No, that's exactly sort of that. There's sort of, then you see on the same day, everyone, all the admins of all the groups write, hey, brothers, we need to make sure that we strengthen the morale. We need to make sure that we don't help the enemy. We need to make our national unity stronger. So we're not going to post any more videos of missiles falling in Tel Aviv, because that's the role of the media. Maybe this is also interesting. Quite a vague question. And I mean, to be very clear. So the question was, how often do you watch videos online from the quote-unquote war, which Israeli media doesn't broadcast? But to be clear, I'm fairly certain that the question means specifically the 7th of October. It does not mean the genocide in Gaza. It means videos of the operations in the 7th of October. But I think it was probably vague, formulated vaguely on purpose. So maybe we can sort of glean from that also some information about the war crimes. But just to say, almost the half say that very rarely they watch videos online that are not on Israeli media. And then sort of yes, often, and yes, very often is about a third of that. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't even exactly know how to.
So it's it's a culture that insulates itself on the whole from the outside world.
And I mean,
from the information of the outside world, which is to say, yeah.
And I mean, let's go all the way back to the beginning I think was that here exactly. I mean, that's Google Translate failed on that, but the 1% here at on the right side, that's foreign media.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn.
Okay, so 1%
So
are
they're just
watching
completely
non-Israeli
insulated
channels.
from
Yeah. And I
But
mean,
then,
and you know,
and
so
this
for
is
example,
Hebrew though. This is Hebrew, right? English is a
no,
different
no,
story.
it's not. No,
Oh,
it's
this is
Israeli
everyone.
Jews. It's Israeli
Interesting.
Jews, and Al Jazeera, for example, Al Jazeera is broadcast there. I mean, before the Al Jazeera law, and you have BBC and you have CNN. Not that they are sort of anti, but you have other networks, and it's not about this is actually not specifically about language.
Right.
But no one watched it. I mean, and also as far as I could tell from the data, not online in any way. So I think that is the point here. Yeah, exactly. That the vast majority only consumes Zionist media and is only informed by Zionist media. And I think that maybe is sort of also the point that you know, I think that's maybe one of the main takeaways. And I think that's also a good segue to maybe, if we still have some time, to look a little bit at Zionist media. I mean, that's sort of just the last couple of points about sort of how people see their ability to distinguish between fake news and not fake news. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, that fake anyway. Fake news is a term that means nothing. So, yeah. So we don't really
responsibility for fake news.
Yeah. So otherwise, who is responsible for fake news? And then the most say it's ordinary people. And I mean that again. So for the left, the main responsibles are political actors, and for the right, the main responsibility is ordinary people. And the only thing I found interesting is. For the right, 16% journalists are to blame for fake news, and also 3% said no. Where was it? Foreign parties. 20% said it's foreign parties interested in changing public opinion. Yeah, so it's the Russia.
It's Qatar. It's Qatar.
I mean, here, exactly. Here is Qatar. Is of course not Russia here, but here it's Qatar or Iran. Iran is also very big on that. Yeah, so I mean that to say everything is an Iranian op. Okay, so. Yes, so that's what they consume, and if we had a look at the empiric, should we have a look at the anecdotal?
Yeah. Let's go to the websites. Yeah. Let's plug our nose, put on our radiation goggles.
All right, so let's start maybe with Ynet. Can you see that?
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
So I mean, I just we can just go through the websites that the survey said are the most prominent, and you know, it's really just, I mean, you had this idea that I thought is really nice to just open it and see what's on right now. Yeah. So and so I mean,
you're our guide. Take us in the river Styx.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's also sight unseen, because again, it's what's here today, so I can't really say. But so main headline is border police officer was killed because a friend of his was playing with his gun at his home and shot him in the head.
This could be a lie. Honestly, this could just be a straight up lie. But I'll believe it if I saw a video, because we know that they lie about their casualties. But
I mean,
also
yes,
I believe in friendly fire.
Exactly. That's a very interesting, because I think, you know, on the one hand, it's true and it's understandable. But again, also, and especially seeing what we just talked about now, such a small society which is so saturated by social media and chat groups, it's not. I don't think it's that easy. I don't think it's that easy to say that someone was found dead in his home and when actually he died in Gaza from a sniper bullet.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure they're doing it part of the time, but I think it's less.
Probably for the mercenaries, but not for the citizens, or like they probably couldn't get away with it. They can probably a lot of times they hide them in accidents, or somebody dies scaling a mountain in Kathmandu or whatever. But yeah.
No, so I think when it's about training accidents in the military, that's maybe something else, because then also even the family doesn't know. The guy goes on Sunday to the military, supposed to come back 2 weeks later, and then they get a phone call and saying, oh, his vehicle crashed. Yeah, but the family doesn't know, was he sort of training in the base or shooting children in the neck, and so that's, I think, more possible, but not in all cases.
So let's go to the world news. I'm curious to see what do Israelis get for world news.
So I mean that's just the landing page. Yeah. So you see that most of it is actually not world news. It's very, very domestic. Everything is very domestic. Yeah. And I mean, so this is Ynet, which is sort of the number one from the sites, but I have a feeling that Channel 12
they have a picture of
also...
Hitler? They have a picture of Hitler and possibly Goering?
Oh yes, but that's actually I think this is from The Guardian. There was some new research about how the Nazis restored documents to find Jews or something. I don't know. But we have what's interesting here? Not really much. Something about there was a protest against an Israeli bakery in London, and what else do we see here? Yeah, so
it feels to me like one of the tasks of Zionist Hasbara, at least for their own settler community, for their own community of fans, is to perpetuate this myth of, oh, everyone hates us because we're Jews. Everyone hates us because we were born the way we were. And not like everyone hates us because we do fucking evil shit and we're racist. But it's like, so I realized that's what the basis of kind of my thinking has been for this episode, is that actually this is like a two-pronged thing of you have internal Hasbara and then you have external Hasbara, which is run and administered and managed by people who aren't Israeli, but they are Jewish Zionists, and they believe in the project of Zionism, but not so far as to actually go and live there and do Zionism. So it's like Bari Weiss is more useful in America being the figurehead of CBS and destroying the credibility of CDS than she is in Tel Aviv doing some media job with her paltry non-existent
100%.
Right?
I mean, there's absolutely no need to indoctrinate Israeli society, and that's exactly what I meant also with the Telegram channels. They're doing it themselves. There's absolutely no need for the media to do it. It's already done in the school system, in every aspect of its Zionist totality is just everywhere. There's absolutely no need to push on that. But maybe also just interesting here to see on the top right corner, you have this nice carousel. Do you see? Sort of this slideshow. That's all the soldiers who died in Gaza. So you have a slideshow of all the people, of all the soldiers that were neutralized, so that you don't forget who sacrificed their life for you. And then, I mean, to be honest, that's also I get a headache just looking at the layout of those pages. So it's also so difficult to even figure out what's going on. But let's move on. Let's move on to N12, to channel 12. Okay, so that's also a lot of commercials. No, so that's the website. That's basically the website of Channel 12. Yeah, so that's the online presence of the main TV channel. Yeah, and so and I think that's
what's the headline? What's the headline?
So so exactly. So that's where I find it gets interesting. So the headline is a quote saying, "Eliminate Khamenei now." And sort of the quote is apparently it's a message from the Saudi kingdom, from the Saudi monarchy. Yeah, a source in the Saudi monarchy tells N12 News, Trump has lost the faith of the demonstrators. The only solution is regime change. So this is what...
Why would the Saudis say that?
and then you have a commentary underneath it. Iran already knows what's about to happen. And then you have a report that Khamenei is preparing Iran to the option of dying, of himself dying. And then, so of course, so
that's... Gaza is just background noise, right? Like there's no there's no like daily reportage. It just is just over there, right?
Yes. So I mean, it's especially now that they think that it's a ceasefire. Now that they call it a ceasefire. Yeah. But I think what I think is interesting. Sort of, in terms of let me just share another one from N12. Because, for example, and that's also from now. Yeah, this is from this morning. So the headline is reduced protests, but the whole world is watching. This is how the new wave of demonstrations in Iran looks like. Yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing. So and that's something that I find interesting. Yeah. So you open the #1 news source in Israeli media, and you see that there's a wave of demonstrations in Iran. And that the regime, and that they all want the evil regime to go. So, and that's where I sort of start asking myself, and it's similar a bit also with the US, is like, at what point do you start getting high on your own supply? Like what aim does it exactly serve? And of course, when you see, we can run the videos. I mean, we don't need to listen to the sound.
Well,
but
this
also,
is okay. There's something else in this too, which is this is Mossad and Intel services taking credit too a little bit. Like there is a degree of flex in Israeli like Mossad, like in kind of in their messaging or whatever, a word I hate to use. It's such a gross neolib PR word. But they do have this culture of PR that flexes on the enemy and says, oh yeah, we're there too. Look what we got here. Look what's happening here. Like, oh yeah, maybe we're there. Maybe. And then until Mike Pompeo fucking says it, says that, oh, every Mossad agent walking beside him. So there is a weird degree of like, look at what we can do inside. Like, so recently N12, I think there was that report of the Afghan spy basically working for them and like going around. And,
exactly. So that's also something what I want to. So that's actually, so there's I sent you one of those things, and there is a so-called sort of an investigative journalism show on Channel 12, which runs for decades, which is called Uvda, Fact. Yeah, and I mean, it's really not something I wanted to talk about on the show, but I think it's proper disclosure that it's run by a relative of mine, let's say, and sort of they had. So I think I sent you one. They had an interview with a Mossad, either agent or operative, that was sort of telling about how in June they were. It was driving around Tehran and setting up whatever drones or something for Mossad. And a couple of days ago, they had an interview with an alleged leader of Peshak. Yeah. Interestingly, the sort of the basically the sister organization of the PKK in Iran, and interestingly, with face and everything. Yeah. Yeah. And then there was the other show from the N12 News that I sent you, that it was also like they had someone in the demos filming for them and telling them. So, but exactly this idea, and this is something that was, during the riots in January, that was blowing my mind, because you see sort of everyone saying, no, it's like this, it's this information that Mossad is involved. And then you have not only Mike Pompeo, but you have Mossad people giving interviews to Israeli media saying, this is what we do, this is what we have done. Yeah, Yossi Melman, who's a sort of a security and intelligence reporter for Haaretz, he already in July, he interviewed Mossad sources about how they worked in the 12-day war and how they got agents into the country to set up their drone workshops. Yeah, none of it is hidden. None of it is sort of so. And then to come and say that this is not a Mossad op, what happened in January is insane to me. It's just it's reality denial. But Yeah, but I mean, what I was the main thing that I want to say is really, and I mean that's not new, yeah, and that's if you watch Iran International, you're in the same boat. But like this completely separate reality that you experience from looking at those media, yeah. And I mean, and to be honest, that's not even even also the Guardian. For 2 weeks after the riots finished, if you would read the Guardian, you would think that there are still demonstrations going on. Yeah, so it's not only, it's also liberal Western media, but if you look at Israeli media, it's on steroids, clearly. Yeah, so
yeah. Well, because this is what happens when you like just do fascism straight up your fucking nose hole and like through a straw. You really believe in your own supremacy, and you can only turn up the volume as it goes on. That's the only response. There's no way you can back down from this. You can't go back to lib Zionism as your fake thing, as you're like, human rights, we'll figure it out. When we'll but no, it's like the full-blown ethno-separatist or ethno-nationalist hatred of your indigenous enemy. That's all these settlers have to like unite them. I don't know. Maybe it's a humanist reading, but this is like you're drinking poison to stay alive. It's like a poison chalice or whatever.
And I always ask myself, how much, I mean, does that not influence their military and political decisions? I mean, sort of like, and then what happens, if they really believe what they read in their own media, then what will happen when they strike and half of Tel Aviv is erased? Or, it's sort of like, I think that's a broader question here about sort of, the siloing of media and how much that sort of, and I think in Israeli, and maybe that's the point I want to make, that I think in Israeli society, maybe because it's a smaller society, you can see very clearly this dialectic between the base and the ruling class in terms of, what information goes, how information goes to the base and how that then affects what the ruling class does. Yeah, and sort of, I think the rise of figures like Ben Gvir and the such is very connected to those processes. So and I mean, Israeli society always thought that it's unbeatable. Yeah, but to be fair, it always thought it was unbeatable as long as it was shooting children in the neck. And they are, they are unbeatable when the enemy is a child. But sort of, would it, like, if you, do you still think you're unbeatable now when you're sort of, when you want to go head to head with the biggest regional superpower? And what would that mean for you?
This is why there will always be two Zionisms. There will be Westoid Zionism, and then there will be Zionism in Palestine. Like, these things, never the twain shall meet. They can't afford to have their settlers move, like their let's say backers or boosters. They can't afford to have them leave their homes, leave the societies in which they play a prominent role. Remember, guys, just statistically, materially speaking, Jews, at least in the U.S., true in Canada too, they have 44% of them make income $100,000 or more. This is not an oppressed, lowly aspect of like a marginalized aspect of society. So you're asking them to give that up, move to a country they've never lived in, speaking a language they've never done, to then do what? To like work in a corner store? To like, there is no, what economy will they join that like is better than what they have there? No, there isn't. But then at a certain point though, somebody has to step in and supply the entity with settlers. And this is the interesting thing, and we should probably wrap up because I have another thing in 5 minutes. But like, at least for me, where we stand now is that the actual colonization part of the Zionist project is not going well. And
it's done. It's done.
Yeah, it's done.
I think who's
going to go? If they haven't gone by now, when will they go?
No, so maybe just 2 points on that. First of all, I think that if it wasn't fictional for a long time, it's definitely. I mean, now. Finally, they're starting to come clearer numbers about how many settlers left the country in recent years. And the number of settlers leaving outpaces those colonizing by multitudes. Yes, so this is done. The colonization, they're not, I mean, the colonization
and
in
think
the
about
sense
it, the
of
people
getting...
coming in don't have the connections that the people leaving do. Right,
Mm-hmm.
that like the people coming in are starting from zero, or not even zero. I know they get like a generous like material package, but like you can't just will yourself into settler colonization. You actually have to do the work, and some of you actually have to sit and die to defend this thing, because there's other people who want to have that thing, want to have their original homes back. So somebody has to stand up. And so, I mean, there were all these lists that went around of the number of like foreign mercenaries. Basically, they weren't mercenaries, they were identified as dual citizens who returned to Israel to fight, and it was like 15,000 or something, 1,500 from Canada alone. But this is, if that's like
But this is also, I think,
if they want to like rule over the region, like a region,
but I'm
and,
also
like,
not...
enslave hundreds of millions, you're gonna need more bodies. I don't care like how you spin it.
And I think, just to say, first of all, it's not enough. And 15,000 is nothing compared to the numbers that they are talking about that are leaving. I think it's again 10, 20 times that, if not much more. But maybe just two points before we finish, just on that. I also think those, I wouldn't call them mercenaries at all, because they are Israeli citizens and they're going to serve in the Israeli military for purely ideological reasons. But I also wouldn't, I don't think they're going, they're going because they want to kill children. They're not going to colonize the land. They're going in the same way that German neo-Nazis go and join the Azov battalion to fight in Ukraine. They want this action, and they have this ideological connection to this violence and to this action, and that's what they want. And I'm not sure that they are then going to set up a life in a suburb of Tel Aviv. They would probably much rather go back to Vancouver or something. So I don't know if that even counts as part of it. And I don't remember when is the last time that I saw some kind of Hasbara piece about an airplane full of new settlers landing in Ben Gurion Airport. There used to be many of them. I don't remember when's the last time that happened. I think it doesn't happen anymore. So that's just on that. And I think just what you said about sort of those two kinds of Zionism, I think just one thing that is really important to remember. Okay, we can call it two kinds of Zionism, but one of them is the real existing Zionism, and the other is completely fictional. And so I think it's the fictional one would just
but you couldn't do one without the other. That's what's so interesting. The dependence on Westoids and Westoid imperialism is one of Zionism's, is the Achilles heel of Zionism. Like, you cut off those lines of supply to the entity, what are they going to do? Like, what are you going to do? Who's going to restock you? Who's going to give you all your goods? So like, that dependency is itself part of their weakness, and they couldn't do what they do without a robust ideological apparatus in the West actively working. And remember, it wasn't even enough that they had the lobby. They had to also have Epstein's, like honeypot Epstein, set up just in case the political class decides to get a little independent. Like, these are all symptoms of a system that doesn't work on its own. It needs to have external forces propping it up. And like, the Epstein stuff is such a tell that, oh, so this is how you maintain control over the like the ruling class oligarchy that's has a natural dependence, it has a natural like love for you in a way, because you are part of their fucking settler colonial project, and you are the tip of the spear in the world's most important geostrategic, like energy rich area. Oh yeah, like, this is not some irrelevant thing, but it's that Zionists believe in their supremacy. So they are the most important thing to the American empire. They are the most important group of, ideologues, even though they're small in number and deeply unpopular in the country that supports them and nourishes them. Like, nobody likes Zionists. Other Zionists don't like Zionists. Like, this is not a population that inspires support. This is not a population that inspires that. They have money and they buy people.
Except supremacists.
We have to end it. But Dror, tell me, like, give us at the end of this, maybe you can kind of give us, like, what do you think? How is it best to like study this entity? Obviously, people aren't going to learn Hebrew, but I think part of this is that, like, we have to kind of to demystify the Zionist entity in a lot of ways, and that means studying their media more systematically, not just like the way we do now, which is kind of like farmed out to people online. Be like, oh, here's this crazy story from N12. Like, here's another example of they're being racist. Like, there needs to be some kind of centralized archive of like Israeli Hasbara, like war crimes, like, you know, war culture around it. Because you can't, to pull something like this off, you need a robust media apparatus. You need something that works. And so you need people behind it working to push it. So those people themselves, as we learned, you know, in Nuremberg trials, they are like part of the crimes too. Like, this is like editors at Israeli newspapers who like were part of the October 7th hoax, like rape hoax. Like, you're a war criminal. Like, you are a war criminal and you're doing war crimes.
Is the New York Times.
Yeah, exactly. But then, yeah, who gets that? Anyways, Dror, I got to run. Thank you for this. This went over an hour and a half. Very edifying. We should do more. We should probably do more of these. And if anything, what I should start doing, it would be interesting / horrible. I don't know what to subject you to this, but like looking at segments of their TV next, and like finding segments, and you can just play like 10 seconds of it and then give us the gist, because we don't have to watch it. But the racism of Israeli media is also something to behold and study and get like because this is something beyond just like, oh, it's it's an aspect of their society. Like, this is the central aspect of their society. Racism, the feeling of racial supremacy. Anyways, thank you, Dror. Tell us quickly, what are you working on next? What do you got going? Share it with us.
So, like I told you last time, one of the things that I work on is I'm working on a documentary right now that has to do a bit with with the suppression of Palestine solidarity in Germany, as on the case study of the Palestine Congress, the conference that was banned by police 2 years ago. And besides, I'm always, let's keep this, because again, like I told you before, your conversation with Adnan Hussein, I found really interesting, because I always ask myself, how can we produce media that is useful to people? And hopefully, I don't know if the last 90 minutes were useful for people, but that's definitely something we should continue doing. So yeah, let's make media about those fascists. And it's always a privilege to come on your show, Sina. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dror. Thank you, man. Thanks you for all this work. This is a lot of work. You have to sift through the swamp for us, so we appreciate it. Thank you, man. I'm going to press that.
All right.